My husband badmouthed me to his ex behind my back, so I pretended to be the perfect wife for months, then abandoned him in the middle of the night and ruined his life. I vividly remember the day I discovered that my husband Josh was texting his ex. My heart dropped and horror washed over me as I realized he wasn't just cheating, he was doing something a lot worse. He was badmouthing me to the extreme to Rachel, saying how terrible I am in bed, how piggish I am, and even disclosing my past trauma to her. In response, she laughed and insulted me too, the two of them nonstop talking about how fat, unattractive, and awful I am at everything. I burst into tears reading these texts dating back months, and just as I was putting his phone down, Josh came out of the shower. I quickly ran off to the bathroom, wiping my tears and spending some time in the toilet trying to compose myself. When I came out of the bathroom, I saw him on his phone laughing, presumably texting her. I wanted to scream and shout at him and call him a filthy liar, a disgusting, pathetic excuse for a man, but I resisted the urge to do so. The days that followed were some of the hardest I had ever endured. Every time Josh touched me, I had to fight the urge to recoil. His hands, which once brought me comfort, now felt like a betrayal. Each time we were intimate, I let my mind wander elsewhere and focused on anything but him, because if I did, I'd instantly get nauseous knowing he was probably going to text Rachel directly, after stating just how awful the intimacy was. No wonder he went into the bathroom with his phone right after every single time. I spent days faking a smile every time I saw him. I continued doing the household chores as if nothing had happened. I made his favorite meals, kept the house spotless, and even surprised him with small gifts, all while my heart was breaking because I knew that he was probably laughing about everything I did to his ex. There was a method to my madness, however, because this was my first step in totally breaking him. A few days in, I had concocted a plan to totally destroy him, and for stage 1 of this plan, I needed to act like the perfect wife. What really sickened me about the entire ordeal, however, was that Josh acted as if everything was perfect, maybe even better than perfect. I couldn't believe that he was affectionate, considerate, all while mocking me to Rachel. During the day, he would compliment my cooking, thank me for keeping the house clean, and even bring me flowers from time to time. He'd cuddle me and hug me, tell me he is the luckiest man alive to have me, and that he wouldn't ever trade me for the world. But then when alone, he'd text Rachel about how ugly I am. Late at night, when Josh was asleep, I would often unlock his phone and screenshot their conversations. Rachel loved the attention she was getting from Josh. She would eagerly jump at the opportunity to say Josh deserves so much better, and that she would never treat her husband like that. There were whole threads of messages from her attacking everything about my looks and my insecurities, with her saying she would be able to run a household and still manage to take care of herself and would never develop such nasty cellulite. She constantly tried to position herself as the better option, and I had it all documented in my phone. It hurt to see all the negative comments on me, especially with my husband indulging in it too. And then it happened. One night when I unlocked his phone, I saw that my husband had stooped to a new level, one so low that I couldn't even fathom it was possible. He sent her an unclothed pic of me while I was sleeping. The two of them laughed their butts off about it, editing the picture, zooming in on every one of my insecurities and insulting my body. Rachel stated that she would never let herself look like a seal, while laughing at me, and Josh chimed in calling me a cow. I almost lost it. This event almost made me forget my entire plan, wake him up and roar at him, but I managed to keep my composure and stick to the plan. However, what they did had left me with irreversible damage. I would constantly look in the mirror and hear their comments running through my head. At night, after documenting another batch of cruel messages, I would sit alone, tears streaming down my face as I wondered how long I could keep this up. I tried to not let it affect my self-esteem, and I reminded myself why I was doing this. I knew if I was going to get away from Josh, I knew I'd have to stay focused. While I was suffering on the inside, I continued to play the perfect wife role. After long, tiring days at work, I would come home and cook his favorite dinners, no matter how exhausted I felt. The house was spotless. I showered him with affection and initiated almost every night. He absolutely loved it, and my plan was working to perfection. As the weeks progressed, I saw the messages he had between him and Rachel do a 180. She would try to throw a jab at me and sarcastically ask, "Is your wife still treating you like the king you are?" And Josh would reply to her telling her yes. As time went on in his messages to her, he would brag about me and say that I am actually doing an amazing job at everything, that I have actually managed to lose weight and am looking attractive now, and that yes, indeed, I am still treating him like a king. He would even send her pictures of the food that I would cook for him. Rachel did not like that. She would try to mask her jealousy and insecurity with backhanded compliments like, "She's surprisingly good at cooking for someone who doesn't have much else going for her," or "You definitely have to give her credit for trying so hard," even though the results weren't always great. Josh would participate in the ridicule beforehand, but not anymore. Even when Rachel tried to shade me, asking Josh if he thought my behavior was genuine, he defended me. "I don't know what changed," he wrote, "but I'm not complaining. She's been incredible lately." Each time I read those words, I felt a mix of joy and sadness. Joy because my plan was succeeding, and sadness because the man I once loved was now a stranger to me. He told her that I had been trying very hard lately, and had to give me credit for that at least. And Rachel would question why he was making excuses for me when he was just dogging me out not even a month ago. They even started arguing about me, with her always, questioning why all of a sudden Josh was defending me. He started to pull away from Rachel, and I could see the rift forming between them. This was extremely apparent when Rachel tried to make fun of me to him in regards to my body, something she has done many times, and something that Josh has gone along with more times than I count. But this time, he shut her down. He told her not to speak like that about my wife. Reading that message, I felt a small flicker of satisfaction. I continued reading their messages and felt a weird sense of pride in the fact I was doing all of this. And the best part was, Josh didn't even know what I had in store for him. I continued doing the ideal housewife duties while also maintaining my full-time job. I was getting tired, however. The days were long and the nights even longer. Cooking elaborate dinners, keeping the house spotless, and always having a smile ready for Josh, who never offered to help with any chores. I knew I couldn't keep up this act much longer. I had enough evidence for the divorce, and one night I decided it was time. I stayed up late staring at my computer screen searching for a divorce lawyer to take on my case. Unfortunately, finding a divorce lawyer within my budget was not an easy task when trying to do so quietly, but after many, many days, I finally stumbled across one. Julia Richardson. Her profile was really impressive, and I sent her an email to schedule a time to meet. The next day, I checked my email and she told me her availability. Meeting with her in secret was a nerve-wracking experience. I would often tell Josh that I was meeting up with coworkers for an outreach event held by my job, then come back home and continue my housewife duties. The first time I sat down in her office, I was a bit nervous. Julia was a sharp-eyed woman. She listened intensely as I explained everything. She told me to gather as much evidence as I could, and the more proof that I have, the stronger my case will be. That was when I showed her the screenshots on my phone. She told me that it was almost solid and to get a bit more. So I did just that. The emotional turmoil was intense. I often cried myself to sleep. I also tried to talk to my friend Jess about the situation, but I knew I couldn't tell her everything. Josh was oblivious to how I really felt. He showered me with compliments and affection. It was almost laughable the way he thought he could hide the monster that was talking to Rachel. After one night of checking Josh's phone again, I noticed Rachel said something that was shocking. She asked that since I was being the perfect wife, that he wouldn't have to come be intimate with her anymore. He replied that this is exactly what he meant, that they would no longer be meeting up and sleeping together. This was it. This was the evidence that I needed for my case. I screenshot this thread and go to bed. The next day, I met up with Julia with some hard evidence that he had been cheating with his ex. She tells me this is exactly what we needed, and we can proceed. She's forming up my case, and all I can think about is being free. She crafted our case against him, and I headed home. I planned my escape for the next day, and I was ready to go out with a bang. The next night came, and I had everything just right. I made him his favorite comfort foods. First, I served him some Caesar salad with fresh Parmesan. Then I served him a perfectly grilled ribeye steak prepared exactly how he liked it, medium rare. The sides were creamy garlic mashed potatoes and baked asparagus. For dessert, I made him his favorite dessert that his grandmother used to make, an apple pie. When Josh saw all that I made for him, his eyes widened from excitement. He downed all the food and praised me at how good it was. As I smiled back at him and told him how much he deserved it, I felt a bittersweet satisfaction. He told me he wanted to show how much he appreciated me and took me to the bedroom. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel nauseated by his touch. Instead, I felt a cold, detached feeling. I was ready to end this charade. I excused myself to the bathroom and came back out with his favorite clothing on me. He couldn't keep his eyes off of me, and then we got to action. This was the best I ever screwed him, even better than our wedding night. After about 10 minutes, he was out like a light. I effed his brains out. I looked over at him as he slept peacefully. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter and quietly packed up the rest of my belongings and headed to the car. I headed to my brother's house where he lived a couple states away, and the whole car ride I blasted my favorite pop music. I felt the weight of Josh flow away as I sang my playlist. After a couple hours, I had finished my playlist and was left alone with my thoughts. I drove through the night, occasionally stopping for food at the diners or to use the restroom. The night was more beautiful than I could imagine. I can't even begin to describe how good I felt driving through the night to Virginia. I kept glancing at the clock on the dashboard, watching the hours tick by. It was way past midnight, and I hadn't slept a bit, and the months of exhaustion hit me like a truck, but I just wanted to put as much distance as I could between me and everything I was leaving behind. A couple weeks later, we both had to appear in court. The divorce proceedings were painful. Seeing Josh again, even in such a mundane environment of the lawyer's office, was hard. He looked broken and defeated. He was a shadow of the man he once was. The courtroom was cold and emotionless. Josh would try to explain himself in court and how he had already cut ties with Rachel, but it was too late. Each time we met, he seemed to sink further into despair. I felt a bit guilty, but quickly squashed it. He had brought it upon himself. Our interactions were brief and formal. Josh tried to talk to me, but I refused to engage. He would try to meet me in the parking lot, asking for answers and begging to find a way to work things out. I kept my responses short and formal. The evidence I had spoke for itself. I felt that there was no need for further discussion. As the divorce drew to a close, I began to feel a sense of closure. I found a new job and was making new friends in Virginia. It was hard to finally tell Jess the full extent of our relationship, but she understood what had to be done. She still comes to visit me sometimes.